and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. You guys have a good, healthy, filling meal yesterday?
Jenna, it was Thanksgiving.
Yes.
We ate, and then we
I don't know if I'd call it healthy. I ate a half an apple pie about 4 hours ago. It was great. It was great. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Rumor has it you went off of your
I did.
Regiment.
Whatever it was.
Yes,
I had a little
regiment.
stuffing.
That is very good.
That's a good word.
Thank
Thank you, brother. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you, Jenna Wolfe.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Couple calories heavier, but I am even happier. Drew Brees and the Saints continue their dominance.
Out this morning?
Oh, did you really?
Let her do her job, please, Cris
If you
Carter.
did, we could
Let
talk
her do
about
her
that.
job.
A lot of football yesterday. We talked about Drew Brees. The Patriots, they're getting a big boost this week. We'll tell you why. But let's start in Dallas, where the Cowboys were playing Thanksgiving host to Washington. Good thing Washington didn't make dinner plans because Dallas kept them real busy all night. Dak Prescott threw for 289 yards and scored 3 total touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott went off for 121 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And Amari Cooper finally had his breakout day, 180 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns in this one. Cowboys beat Washington 31-23. They are now tied, both teams atop the division at 6-5. Here's Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott on if he felt his team has turned things around.
100%. Just the way we're going and the way we're progressing, as you said, these last 3 games is defense making turnovers. We're actually going and cashing them in for touchdowns. We're taking care of the ball. Defense is getting us many, many possessions, even when we're punting it. So we're just all playing together. Offensive line's doing a great job holding up when we need to, making plays down the field. But there's still plays out there to be that have been left out there on both sides of the ball.
They say, if you really want to be a good team, you have to start rolling in November. And, we've just been focused, man, standing tall with our backs against the wall, relentless, and, hopefully we can keep this up.
All right, CC, so when you look at the Cowboys over the course of the last couple weeks, can you pinpoint one thing? What's really been the key for this team turning things around?
Well, one of the keys was, and one of the things we were critical about, was their inability to have any type of consistency on the road. They had lost on the road and hadn't played the type of football that they had thought coming into this season. Because coming into the season, to not think that Dallas would be in the playoff hunt and wouldn't be fighting for the NFC East, that wouldn't be being realistic to what type of talent that they did have. So the inability to be able to play on the road, even at home, the inconsistency as far as the passing game, the inability to be able to make big plays. That's why before the trade deadline, they go out and they trade for someone like Amari Cooper. So they're playing football like in a phone booth, and their margin of error, even though they did have a good defense, if the defense let down, their offense wasn't explosive enough to be able to support them. Zeke was having a good season, but time after time in critical situations, the problem with Dallas was Dak Prescott could not make plays in the passing game, and their wide receivers and lack of a tight end, they were not difference makers on the outside. So did Dak really have a realistic, and the reason why we talked about Amari in the trade, we thought that Dallas couldn't really evaluate Dak fairly unless they had a #1 receiver.
Right.
And yesterday, that's what they were able to do. Even as we broke down what they should do before the game, Nick's like, listen, they got their best player is Ezekiel Elliott. They should lean on him, which they did do yesterday. But, man, the game is easier when you can open it up with that passing game.
They threw the ball more than I thought they would, and they had more success in the passing game than I thought they would. I went into that game. Washington had forced a turnover in every game all season. Dallas was going into yesterday 5-0 when they didn't turn the ball over. So I thought their best path to victory was just play a clean football game, let Colt McCoy make the inevitable mistakes that we saw him make. They did play a clean football game, but it wasn't because they only handed the ball to Zeke. Now, he did have 26 carries. I thought Zeke got them started. I thought that opening drive was critical, and he got them started on the right foot. They jumped out 7-0, but then they don't score again until the tail end of the first half in a squandered red zone opportunity. They had to settle for a field goal. The difference in the game, obviously, was what you alluded to. Dak made a couple good but relatively basic throws that an elite playmaker did the most with. That Amari Cooper on both of those plays, took him to the house. With one play, a defender falls down, but he still has to make the cut to make him fall down. And the other play goes 90 yards. I thought he was going to get caught. Like, those were elite plays where you finally saw that's the Amari Cooper that we had seen at Alabama in his first 2 years in the NFL.
And yesterday was the first time that I had seen, and Amari and Jenna, you make a point seeing him there in the interview and been like, wow, that's Amari Cooper right there, right? Because sometimes sometimes you don't know the guys, so now you start to see them in interviews. So Amari's an elite talent. He's an explosive wide receiver. He's a complete route runner. He can run in the slot. He can play outside. His yards after the catch. I mean, yesterday, I was like trying to listen, enough's enough, Amari. Like, right. I know we can't just keep blaming quarterbacks or blaming systems. At some point, your career is some part of your responsibility. And it's hard when you transition during the middle of the season. But if you look at what he's done in 4 weeks in Dallas compared to 6 games this year in Oakland, I mean, it was time for him to have that type of breakout game. We've been asking these wide receivers, a number of them have gotten traded. But when you look at the overall productivity, and this game was needed for him because before yesterday, his longest pass of the season, I think, was 36 yards. Yep. In Oakland, I think his longest pass play was 20-something in Dallas. So him to be able to make those explosive plays, you could see.
And he made him win. I'm sorry to interrupt. He made him when it looked like the game was slipping away from Dallas.
Yes.
They had blown the end of the first half, I thought, poorly twice. They blew it in the red zone. They got another opportunity. They blew it again. Washington comes out after Dallas goes 3 and out early in the second half, scores a touchdown. Now, all of a sudden, it felt to me, Jenna, that a game Dallas had been in control of, they're trailing. They're trailing 16-13, or I'm sorry, they're trailing 13-10, pardon me. And how did we get here? And then Amari on a 3rd and 2 takes it to the house. The next drive on 2nd and 9 from the 10 takes it to the house, and that flipped the football game.
Cowboys are taking their sweet time putting everything together. It took them a bunch of weeks before they figured out what it's going to take for them to win. Then they bring Amari Cooper in. Takes them a bunch of weeks before they figure out how to incorporate him into their lineup. So now they've got Amari Cooper working. At least we saw that last night. They got Ezekiel Elliott with 25 to 30 carries every game. He's going to give you hopefully a $1.50 wherever in there. Did they put everything together? Like, is this it now? Is this the team? How far can a team with both of these weapons go?
This is the thing. We have to be honest. Dallas was wrong this offseason. All right, they were wrong about Dez Bryant, and they didn't have an adequate replacement for Jason Witten. So it was going to take some type of transition. Dallas thought Allen Hurns was going to be a 1,000-yard receiver, going to be their #1 guy. We thought Cole Beasley, he's doing exactly what we thought. We thought Deontay Thompson would help him out. He's no longer with the team. So we were wrong about that. But they didn't sit and wait for 2019. They say, we know we were wrong. We're going to make a trade for Amari Cooper. So in doing that, a lot like the Cavs did last year, we have to recalibrate the team. Give them a chance to be able to see a month with Amari Cooper. But I'm going to tell you, if you put 8 guys at the line of scrimmage, Amari Cooper will run off with it. So you have to be able to put some coverage towards him. So that part right there, Jenna, and they're in a unique year where the Washington Redskins, they lost 2 games in a row. They've lost a number of starters, and they're leaking oil and will not make it to the finish line. This is the kind of year that, you could take some time to get it together. So at 6-5, this is not where they want it to be, but this is a salvageable season, and they are sure enough the front runner to win their division and get themselves in the playoffs.
The drastic front runner. Our great producer Brumley and I every week on Monday or Tuesday after football, we do what we call cross-offs.
Which is not typically a word I put with you or Brum.
I didn't assign it to myself. I assigned it to Brum. Our great producer, Brumley, we do cross-offs, which is, so basically after 3 weeks of the year, we're like, we can cross off the Bills as far as teams that we know are not going to make the postseason. I can cross off Washington. Washington's cooked. I know they're 6-5. I understand they're tied for first in their division.
They're going the wrong way. Lost 3 of 4.
Lost 3 of 4. Since those offensive linemen have gone down, this great Adrian Peterson redemption story, that's gone out the window the last month. The last month, he's giving you 40 yards a game on 3 yards per carry. Now they also have Colt McCoy, otherwise known as a poor man's Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. And you don't want to be a poor man's anything Ryan Fitzpatrick. You can cross them off. They're done. So unless Philly all of a sudden is going to have some revelation and turn into the team they were last year.
OBJ wants to run the table and win the next.
Okay, yeah. Or unless the Giants go from 1-7 to 9-7, the Cowboys don't even have to be great the rest of the way to win this division and get the home game. If they play the way they did yesterday, then you talk about them as a team. Oh, is it more than just winning a bad division? Could they be a team that could upset someone in the playoffs? But right now, they should be as confident as any team in the league as far as where they are within their own division. Because the team they were chasing is done. Washington is finished. We saw it yesterday.
All right, let's take a break. There was another game last night. Saints-Falcons. Did Drew Brees and the Saints solidify themselves as the best team in the NFL? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back. We'll get to Drew Brees and the Saints in a second, but first, DeMarcus Lawrence brushing off the offensive tackle, bats the ball, comes up with the pick.
Now, this is a great play.
Thank you.
Because he's able to anticipate, because the offensive lineman has a quick set and tries to cut, he automatically knows it's quick game passing. There's only a couple routes that they can run. He tries to throw the slant flat route, throw the flat. He picks it off. Amazing play by a defensive lineman.
So I thought this was amazing athleticism. We were watching this before the show. You were saying he made that play more with his head.
Yes, he read
knew
it.
what was coming.
Ooh.
Oh, my
College
God.
Hoops, Texas senior
Now, he
Kerwin
did not
Roach.
read this one.
Oh.
Go get it. I like that. Big win for Texas. And my cousin Shaka Smart. That's a big
Yeah,
win
people
over
think you got people say that all the time, right?
That I look like Shaka Smart. Yeah, that's why I called him the best-looking coach in Division I basketball yesterday. Go get it.
Finally,
Looks a lot better
EuroLeague
than that other guy
basketball.
they say you look like.
Manu Ginobili?
Yeah, no, that guy looks like he's had on a binge or something.
All right, guys, enough.
Not sure this
What's
is
his
how
name?
they drew this one up.
Green or
Tim
something?
Tom Green.
Him too.
It counts
What's
2
happening
points
here?
all the same.
Did it go off his head? Off his head? Oh, EuroLeague. Look at this. Give me the ball. Oh. Off the noggin. Did you get an assist for that pass? The bucket goes to the guy who went off his
Y'all
noggin.
do realize they had to stop the game to be able to wipe it off. He had a little wave grease on.
Well, I knew you were going to
Had
say
to
that,
stop
man.
it, you know.
Little sheen.
Hit him off of his wave cap.
If the Saints have anything to be thankful for this year, it is unquestionably Drew Christopher Brees. He said earlier in the week he feels like he's in a zone. That continued last night against the Falcons. Brees finishing with 171 passing yards, found 4 different receivers for touchdowns. They won, beating the Falcons 31-17. Their 10th straight win. Here is Drew Brees after the game.
Each week, I think especially over the last 3 weeks, you've seen just a level of confidence and growth and maturity. I think out of some young players, really on both sides of the ball, stepping into roles, getting significant playing time, really having to contribute in a big way. And they've just continued to get better and better, and I think there's confidence that's building with that too, and so you just feel like we're scratching the surface.
All right, Nick, you watched this game last night. It's hard not to have them in the conversation for the best team in the NFL. After picking up their 10th straight win, could you say this could very well be the best team?
They are the best team in the league right now. I had been saying that them, Kansas City, and Los Angeles were all in the same tier, and they are all in the same tier, but the Saints are at the top of the tier. The Saints, what they did last night, Alvin Kamara could have gone for 200. He didn't because they didn't need to. Last night, Kamara and Thomas combined for 5 catches for 47 yards. Drew Brees throws 4 touchdowns to 4 guys who going into the game had 2 career touchdowns combined.
And Nick, if you tell me what the numbers are going to be, like you typically can do, man, you know the numbers. You tell me, Chris, these are going to be the numbers. These are going to be the guys. Tell me what happened. I was like, man, the Saints lost that game.
Saints lost that game. Alvin Kamara is going to have 1 catch for 9 yards. Michael Thomas is going to have 4 catches for 38 yards. They're going to have combined rushing and receiving, those 2 players, 0 touchdowns. Oh, the Saints lost. Oh, no, they didn't. Because old Dan Arnold, undrafted out of Wisconsin Platteville, got him a touchdown. Tommy Lee Lewis, undrafted out of Northern Illinois, got him a touchdown. Austin Carr, who I thought was a Cavs great, undrafted out of Northwestern, got a Cavs touchdown. And who can forget the great Keith Kirkwood, undrafted out of Temple? He got him a receiving touchdown. These are Madden-generated creative player names. They all scored for the Saints yesterday. What they are doing, okay, you want to double Michael Thomas every play? No problem.
Yes.
We're going to have guys in single coverage and perfectly placed balls. Man, this team is terrifying.
And we needed to see this. We need to see this type of win where their offense was sputtering as far as their stars and their productivity, and the defense was just holding down a really good offensive team. So that's the problem, that when you try to, how do I make a difference between Drew Brees, what he's doing, Patty Mahomes, and Jared Goff, what they're doing? A lot of times on that defensive end with the Saints. All right, the Saints defense has been far more consistent since those first opening games. So that, to me, besides Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees is playing at a level, and it was nice to hear during the telecast last night because Tony Dungy and them talked about being around Sean Payton, how Sean Payton in the practice the day before predicted that this guy right here is going to be wide open in the game when we run this, because they're going to think we're going to throw it to Mike, and this guy is going to use him as a decoy. So that was brilliant to be able to see, and I think it's very important, not only for the team to see, but these other role players, for them to have some success, because they're going to need them in a game to make a play or two. And we also need to be able to see, what are the Saints if you clamp down on their top 2 guys? How can you get some productivity? And Sean Payton and Drew Brees are able to get in sync with these guys and be able to prove it out. That's why, Nick, I think that you're saying that they're the best team in football.
How does a team like this, where you're able to use 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th options, undrafted guys, make that work? Is it Drew Brees? Is it the system? Is it what Sean Payton is carving up? Can another team duplicate that?
Yesterday, I thought it was more schematic than talent. Yesterday, Drew Brees was not particularly sharp. He missed a few passes, uncharacteristic of him this season. But guys were running wide open. 2 of these touchdowns, when the ball gets to him, they're the only player in the screen.
Yes.
So Drew Brees didn't have to be incredibly sharp.
Ben Watson dropped another touchdown where Drew Brees manipulated the safety out straight down the seam there. So you make a great point. Not only these guys are not the primary targets, but you know it's a play design in the NFL. When you're playing against a team that you have played twice a year for a number of years, they know your intel. The reason why we have these Thanksgiving specials against teams that they know. Why? Because they're familiar. The games will be tighter. Like I told you guys, these games will start slow and be a little more methodical because both teams know each other. But later on in the game, it will become more explosive. So that right there is a credit to Sean Payton to be able to manipulate and know what the defense was going to do and be able to get these guys wide open.
And since that Rams game where they won, but they allowed 35 points, this Saints defense, playing the Bengals, hold them to 14. Playing Philly, hold them to 7. Play Atlanta, hold them to 17. They've got 9 turnovers forced in that 3-game stretch. That we know they're the #1 rush defense in football. They showed that again yesterday. And we saw the pressure they exert on the opposing team when their offense is on the sideline. The Falcons went for 6 4th downs yesterday. Not the majority of which when the game was still in question early.
Yes.
It was exactly what when Coach Mangini and I were talking yesterday. It was a David versus Goliath game where it was you felt like, even though I'm not calling the Falcons a David in all senses, but because the Saints have such an overwhelming
go
offense.
through the Rolodex.
Right. You feel like, man, we've got to do everything we can to stay on the field. They went for a 4th and 7 at midfield in the first quarter because, man, we can't afford to give the ball back to New Orleans.
Now, a lot of times, too, when we talk about Sean Payton, we'll talk about him as far as offensive play caller, him and Drew Brees, how prolific they are as far as an offense. But one thing should be noted, and if they are able to go on to try to win a Super Bowl, a lot should be taken from what Sean Payton has done with certain players. Michael Thomas, we know his career, only a second-round pick. Alvin Kamara, he was a third-round pick, right? A third-round pick, what he's done with him. But what he did in the trade deadline, all right, there's a hidden little secret in the NFL and the scouting departments, everything. Sean Payton loves Ohio State players. And I'm not just saying that because I came from Ohio State. But look what Eli Apple, in yesterday's game, sometime matched up with Julio Jones one-on-one. We saw Eli Apple in this city. We're here. We saw him get criticized. We saw his career. Guys on the team call him out, say they didn't want to play with him. Now he's turned his career around. All right, he looks like a first-round pick in that secondary for the Saints that is full of 3 other Buckeyes. And so that Sean Payton, he doesn't get credit as as just an X's and O coach. He's a developer of talent, and that trade right there to Eli Apple could really help solidify that defense, and that's why we're starting to see some of them stellar numbers and a lot of that coming from the back end of the defense.
And the 3 teams that won yesterday, the Bears, the Cowboys, and the Saints. The Bears obviously made a massive trade before the season that changed their team. But the Cowboys and Saints both added players at the deadline. And it's not only the addition of talent in your locker room, but it's what it does for the other guys in the locker room, telling them the management thinks we can win right now. We are trying to acquire guys right now, as opposed to teams like the Packers that sold off some talent. And what it tells the guys in the locker room, we're more worried about next year. I feel like it gives, Troy Aikman made this point during the Dallas game, it gives the other guys in the locker room almost an invigoration of, oh, we're going for it this year, and Eli Apple's playing some of the best football of his career.
Before we break, I want to quickly ask you about the Falcons, because a lot of people had the Falcons going pretty far this year. Was this an outlying year because of all the injuries, or is this a team that's trending the other way?
Defensive injuries and very close losses early. Prior to last night, I think only one of their losses had been by more than a score. They had an overtime loss to the Saints. They had a goal line loss to the Eagles. They had a last-second loss to Cincinnati. They had a lot of injuries, and the 50-50 games went against them. That's how you turn into this season.
I think they've really developed something with a couple players added to it. If you look at Freeman's been out, their star running back for most of the season. We know the wholesale defensive changes that they had to make. But if you look at them, they have Calvin Ridley. Add him to Julio Jones. You get Free back next year. So they're still going to be a dangerous team, but they are a piece away. There are certain teams that will win in spite their injuries, but there will be certain teams that their season, it's not an excuse. It's real. Their season will be ended because of injuries, and I would say that's more of the Falcons. Well-run team, well-coached, but you just cannot overcome some of the things that they face this year.
All right, we got a break. Coming up, does Rob Gronkowski's return solve all the Patriots' problems? Next on First Things First. If only it was that easy. Time now for some stories to start your morning. Dallas took down Washington yesterday, 31-23, behind a few key weapons. We mentioned Amari Cooper. Add another strong performance by Ezekiel Elliott. He finished with 143 total yards and a touchdown in the Cowboys' third straight win. Nick, how impressive has Zeke looked lately?
Man, lately and all season and his whole career. How about this? Since the start of 2017, he is tied for the league lead in 100-yard rushing games. Why is that noteworthy? He missed 6 games that year. So even though he's had 6 fewer opportunities than Todd Gurley, the guy he's tied with, he is at the top of the league as far as monster rushing games. 3 in a row now for him. This is the Zeke we were hoping to see at the beginning of the season. We're now seeing maybe at a better time at the tail end of the season.
Yeah, I think he is even better. I think that this offseason, he thought, like a lot of younger players, let me put on some additional bulk, some additional weight. Then they start realizing when I get in the season, I don't need that additional weight. I think he's gotten a little bit leaner as the season's gone on. He's far more patient than he was the first 5 or 6 games, and his open field running is elite. That offensive line now playing in sync, getting them to that second level. That's why he's putting this special season together, Jenna.
All right, Falcons fell to the Saints 31-17 last night. They had no answer for Drew Brees, who threw 4 touchdowns, while Matt Ryan and the offense turned the ball over 4 times. Atlanta is now eliminated in the NFC South. Nick, how disappointing has this season been for the Falcons?
Well, wildly, particularly the last few weeks, where if you're the Falcons, it looked like you maybe were going to be able to claw your way out of that 1-3 start, or that 1-4 start, pardon me. But then Cleveland blows you out. You lose a game to Dallas that surprised everyone, and everyone had kind of expected you to lose last night. It's why those early starts, losing at the last second New Orleans, not being able to punch in against Philly, losing at last second to Cincy, that killed you, along with obviously all those injuries.
Yeah, I still have a lot of faith in the Falcons moving forward. It's one of those type of seasons that you're not making excuses, but injuries are a part of the game. There are certain teams who will not be able to overcome their injuries, and that's what they have. Devontae Freeman's been out most of the season. Wholesale changes because of major starters out on that defense. Dan Quinn is still one of the elite coaches we have in this league, and Steve Sarkisian did a great job this year as far as red zone and incorporating these young receiver Ridley from Alabama in with Julio Jones.
All right, the other game yesterday, let's end with the Bears and Lions. Chicago's defense coming up big once again, intercepting Matt Stafford twice, including a pick six. Bears win 23-16 to improve to 8-3 on the year. See, is it time to start taking Chicago seriously as Super Bowl contenders?
Absolutely. If you can continue to play defense like that in the NFC, and if you look at where they are, I mean, they're just a game from getting that number 2 seed. And I know we're all this prolific scoring and everything, but earlier in the week, we talked about, man, is the NFL, is it going to be like the Monday night game? And you asked them with the question, man, can you pick, Chris, you can have one defense. Who are you going to take? I'm taking Chicago. And the reason why they do two things that even in this NFL are always still going to be effective, I don't care how many of the rule changes that they make. They got an elite pass rusher in Khalil Mack, who you have to double team so they can get to the passer. Now, and he's not a one-man band. They got substantial draft capital put into that offensive line. Linebackers can run sideline to sideline, can cover people in space, and their secondary, Nick, you've become more and more impressed with this secondary week in and week because they got the same type of playmakers on the back end now that they have that can rush the passer.
And I'm going to talk about the secondary in just a second. To set the template for what C's talking about as far as where they are in the NFC, they're 8-3. Saints and Rams, obviously both 10-1. The Rams have to come to Chicago in a couple weeks in what will probably be cold, maybe a snowy environment. They do have a path where they could get one of those byes. We know they are in position to win the division and have at least one home game. And to win, they just won a game on the road in the shortest turnaround from game to game in the history of pro football.
Was it 88 hours?
They went from Sunday night football to not only playing Thursday. So people don't like go Sunday night to Thursday night. They went from Sunday night to Thursday at 12:30, and they had to travel. And they had a backup quarterback. And it was a divisional opponent. They have now won 3 divisional games in 11 days after losing their previous 10. They had been 0-10 in the division the previous 750 days. They've won 3 in the last 11. But a big part of that is what you were talking about, C, that secondary. And Eddie Jackson, who I think you coached against in Florida because you either coached or coached against half the damn league. Eddie Jackson is a guy who now, in a young NFL career, has 5 defensive touchdowns, 3 in the last 4 weeks, including 2 that swung games, 2 that were the deciding plays in critical games for them, the one against the Vikings and then the one yesterday against Detroit when it looked like Detroit might be able to take a lead. He's been a revelation for them. He's been a huge part of that secondary you're talking about.
But yesterday we talked about Mitch Trubisky and whether this team would miss him. Now moving forward, did it look like this defense, if they're going to go that far, is going to carry them? Does it matter if it's Chase, Daniel, or if it is Mitch Trubisky?
It matters. It matters. Now, they got through this game with Chase. Chase and the head coach, Matt Nagy, have some history together in Kansas City. So thinking that he could function at a high level and to be able to get the win, yes, they thought they could. But for the Chicago Bears, they got to keep developing Trubisky. Yeah. They got to keep him and be able to get the weapons, and they can run some run options, some RPOs, because he is a great athlete. He's got great legs. He's got a really strong arm, but he's not a thrower of the football. He's a thrower of the football now compared to be a pitcher of the football and a passer of the football. So that is going to continue to develop. He's had some big games this year, but it's still been up and down. If they're Super Bowl, if they're aspirations, it's because Trubisky continues to evolve as a passer.
One thing that he has going for him, you saw it yesterday with Chase, is similar to what we saw at moments in the Saints game. You got guys running wide open. Matt Nagy is scheming the hell out of this, out of these game plans, and he's got a lot of speed. Tariq Cohen is too little to be in the NFL. Like, it doesn't make sense he's in the NFL. He is because he is so dynamic with the ball in his hands. Taylor Gabriel, who we saw have good moments with the Falcons a few years ago, he's another speed option.
And they use him the right way.
Absolutely right. They don't ask them to do things they're not comfortable with, and you see guys just all of a sudden, as Bart Scott would say, he fell for the banana in the tailpipe, guys running wide open. And so that's why Trubisky doesn't have to make a ton of huge throws. But you're right about him being a very good athlete, and they do want him back. Chase, who I think is the best backup in the league, did his job. But Trubisky has the second most rushing yards of any quarterback in football, behind only Cam Newton.
Wow.
So they need him back. But this is, if weather's going to matter, if defense is going to matter, if the old adages about playoff football are going to matter, the Bears, they don't play in no dome. They don't play in a warm weather city. They are a team built to play in a city like Chicago.
I'm going to tell you one thing I thought was really just kind of refreshing to me. And people always try to bring back something from the past. You know, we had the Purple People Eaters in Minnesota, and we talk about the fearsome foursome with the Rams, and even though the Rams are an offensive tack now, and we talk about Chicago, the monster of the Midway. To see Chicago's defensive coaches in the booth yesterday, and they had sweaters on that said monsters of the Midway. I was like, that's pretty cool on Thanksgiving to have football back, Chicago. Some defenses, it's not illegal to play defense in Chicago. They got a good defense.
Vic Fangio is doing a hell of a job in Chicago this year.
All right, let's look ahead to Sunday. The Patriots are hobbling their way into this weekend. Both Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski were limited in practice this week, but are expected to play on Sunday. Gronk has missed the last 2 games, but hopefully won't be terribly taxed when he comes back as the Patriots take on the Jets. Jets have lost 4 in a row, and all their fans. CC, how much better can the Patriots be with Gronk?
Depending on which Gronk we're going to get. How healthy is he? Like, did they leave him out an extra week? Did the bye week get him back to 80, 90%? Like, because earlier in the year, Mike Lombardi,
who used to work with the Patriots, he ran the Browns, he went back and was a consultant with Belichick, very close to the Patriots.
And after like 3 games, he was like, man, I think Gronkowski's lost a little wiggle. He's lost a little explosiveness, like his route running. He doesn't look as the Gronk that I had seen before. He looked more like a lumbering, just trying to be physical. Because Gronk, there's a few things he can do. He has great releases off the line of scrimmage. He's too big, too quick, too strong. And Gronk has more speed than people anticipate. Look at a lot of the highlights where he's running away from people, stiff-arming them. We hadn't seen an awful lot of that. So where is he going to be? If he's back close to 90%, we're talking about an end-of-the-line blocker who is an elite. So if they get him and Sony Michel back, so it's not just Gronk. It's his ability. Can he be great at blocking again? Because he's also going to dictate a lot of coverage from the Jets. The Jets are going to be like, hey, we're not going to let Gronk beat us. So now we should continue to see Josh Gordon continue to take advantage of that, make more plays on the outside. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh is targeted around 10 times. It should open up some things for him, but it also should open up some things for Edelman. So it's not just how many balls is Gronk going to get. It's him on the end of the line blocking. It's the effect it's going to have on Sony Michel and the lack of coverage that they can put on these other wide receivers that I believe will take advantage of those.
But if once he comes back, he looks like the Gronk that we saw the last few games he played, he's not going to dictate as much coverage. If he does look like a lumbering, lesser player that is at the tail end of a career, then all of a sudden some of the advantages you get from having Rob Gronkowski on the field when he's not touching the football, those dissipate a bit. He had a monster week 1 of the season. Since week 1, he has 22 catches for 325 yards and no touchdowns. And he's only missed 2 games, so it's not like so we're talking about an 8-game sample where he has just been okay. Like, he's been fine. And so you saw teams all of a sudden not dictating coverage as much to double-team Gronk once they saw he wasn't as dynamic. And I'll add another thing. Like, the Patriots, 2 of their bad road losses came with Gronk. Only one of them came without him, the most recent one against Tennessee. But the loss to a bad Jags team, the loss to a bad Lions team, Rob Gronkowski was out there.
Well, is there something to be said for, and this is something you bring up, I don't, it could be wrong, apples and oranges. LeBron saves himself as the season goes along because he knows what it takes for him to preserve his body. Is there something to Belichick scheming it this way so you're not seeing 100% of Gronk because they know they need him down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, that's what people can think, but when you really look at it, let's look at what happened this offseason. Gronk, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might go into wrestling. I might go into the movies. I might retire. Then they came to some type of agreement where they gave him a lot of incentives in his contract.
That he's not going to hit any of.
So there's no way that this is the plan because they wouldn't have that incentive plan. This is what they had to deal with him. Got off to a great start, then all of a sudden got nicked. Now, when he was playing those games and not getting numbers, it wasn't because they weren't trying to throw to him. It's because he was not effective. We saw a couple weeks ago when they needed a play to be made, they moved him outside, and he was able to make that play. But there's only been a few of those. So you can say that Gronk has been injured and is starting to. Right now, the featured players on this offense are Sony Michel and Josh Gordon, all right? They are the two most explosive and probably been the two most consistent offensive players. So to think that here we are halfway through, more than halfway through the season, and those two offensive players will be the most consistent, more consistent than Gronk, more consistent than Tom Brady.
Right.
Like
more
that would be
than Edelman.
That would be shocking news.
All right, Jenna, your question there was Chris's answer was it never has it been so crystallized in my head how much more Cris likes you than me, because I thought that exact same thing about a year ago. And I said, I think they're kind of waiting to break Gronk out of the garage. And Cris, man, in pro football, you cannot do that. You got to try to win every game. He was so much more gentle. So because I thought the exact same thing, that the Pats know Gronk's got so many pitches left in his arm, so to speak, to mix metaphors. So let's save him for December and January. Let's make sure we don't overuse him, overtax him early in the season. Coach and Mangini have both said you can't do that in the NFL, even though visually I thought I was seeing something similar. One thing about this specific game, the Jets game, because that is the game that he's coming back for, if the Jets are going to have any shot at giving the Patriots another road loss on the year, where the Pats have been bad, obviously, this season, the Jets are going to have to clean up the three things they do on offense worse than anybody, which are the three worst things on offense to be bad at. They're the 31st ranked red zone team, the 32nd ranked third down team, and the 30th ranked turnover team. So what do you need to be a good offense? Score in the red zone, convert third downs, don't turn the ball over. They have been the worst in the league or among them at all three categories. They're going to have an outlier game to even make this close against the Pats.
All right, before we go to break, and while we are talking Patriots, CC, check out this clip that was sent to us this week.
Happy birthday, Cris. One of my favorites. Great personality, great human being. Celebrate many more happy times together, and just like you made our last trip to the Holy Land special with your presence. Be well.
Happy birthday, C.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Jenna could have given me a happy birthday. It would have been from a celebrity. I'm see you guys brought in a celebrity. Can't give him no happy birthday from this dude. Oh, my.
Wait, the strategy to stand in front of all the trophies.
Yeah, Robert Kraft's stunting on you a little bit. Stunting on you on your birthday was standing in front of those 5 Super Bowls. Could have done his office. Could have done it from the field.
No, he's not stunting on me. That's what he should be doing. He's on brand.
Okay.
He's on brand.
Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's this weekend. Otherwise, we would be doing this today.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
So
well, we are doing this.
We are doing this today is another way to put that.
It's this weekend. Otherwise, we'd be doing it right now.
Be doing
or
it right
another
now.
time. I don't know.
Coming up, everybody take a drink where you all give your good jokes. Can Aaron Rodgers and the Packers keep their playoff hopes alive Sunday? That's next on First Things First. Wish this guy a happy birthday this weekend. Back here, First Things First, we are joined by former Pro Bowl linebacker Bart Scott. Bart, good morning.
Fresh out my turkey coma. What's up, Brody?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hello. Happy Thanksgiving.
You had a good day?
You got the cranberry suit on in honor of the holidays. That's what's up.
That's what's up. I was like, what is up? That's what's up.
I love the cross patterns, though, man. I'm talking about the gingham. We got a little velvet right here.
Little
we got
gingham,
the Migos
good.
skinny jeans.
Yeah.
We good.
Look at this
jeans, I think they're 34 and 36.
He's like, well, I guess you could talk. You don't have to live anywhere near Green Bay or Minnesota to understand the importance of a Packers-Vikings NFC North showdown. showdown. Both teams hovering around 500, hoping to keep their playoff hopes alive. Vikings will lean on Kirk Cousins as they've got the second worst rushing attack in the league, while Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, well, they'll look to avenge their 0-5 road record this season. Here's Aaron Rodgers on turning the season around.
It's been a disjointed year at times with our personnel, and then you're trying to fit the ball in spots from time to time. But I gotta trust the progressions. I gotta get the ball to the open guy, and I gotta get us playing a little faster. I mean, the energy and the tempo starts with me in practice in the game, and guys need to feel that even more. So I gotta amp up my level during the game and get us playing faster. We can't be having to take timeouts because we're not getting into the huddle and we're not getting out of the huddle. So I got to bring it with the tempo and obviously play like I want to play. I want to play a close to perfect game.
All right, Bart, let's break this down a little bit. You look at this Packer team, the way it is right now. What do they need to do at this point to not only win this weekend, but to keep these playoff hopes alive?
I think they need to do what they've been doing, just like you said, do the little things, the small things. But they've been running the ball very well. Defensively, they played well. Look at that last game against Seattle. That was a dogfight, and they could have came out on either side. I like the way that they're playing. I like the balance on offense, and I like how say that again. Opportunistic. Opportunistic that defense is as well. I think Minnesota may be in trouble, because they're one-dimensional. They can't run the football. And against Aaron Rodgers, if you can't run the football, one-dimensional, give him the ball back. Now he's going to have opportunity to get a point. If he gets a lead and you become one-dimensional, Mike Pettine's going to be able to take advantage of that.
The problem is it's a game of matchups. And this defense, Green Bay, is a different defense than when they play at home. So that defense allows people to run against them. It allows people to be able to score points. And I think that's why Aaron, in his little address to the media right there, he said a couple things that I thought were enlightening. Yeah. Number one, he said was, I got to go somewhere and play a perfect game. I ain't never thought. I done played against some of the greatest teams ever. I played against some of the greatest defenses ever. And at not one point, not one coach or myself ever think that I had to play a perfect game. So Aaron does not have a lot of confidence in that defense going to Minnesota to play against Minnesota's offense. Last week we saw, for the first time all season for the most part, Dalvin Cook was able to stay in the game, didn't have a setback. So maybe their inability to run the ball because he hadn't been healthy. We know they don't have a strong offensive line. But the lack of productivity from the defensive front for the Packers, I think this is the game that they're able to get Dalvin Cook enough carries where he can potentially get over 100 yards. And if he's able to do that, Kirk Cousins and those wide receivers are going to carve up that secondary.
Because that's where Green Bay struggled. Green Bay, surprisingly, has sacked the opposing quarterback more than, on a percentage basis, any team in football. But they are bottom 6 in the NFL as far as defending the run. You've been able to run on Green Bay all year long. But I found the comments from Rodgers interesting as well, because right before he said, I have to play a perfect game or nearly a perfect game, he's talking about being a coach on the field. I got to get in and out of the huddle quicker. Got to play with a quicker pace. And everything that he said there, while I think it was accurate, it also, to me, further confirms all the reports of a rift between he and McCarthy. When you are saying publicly, oh, how are we going to win? Oh, I've got to be perfect. What do I need to do? I need to make sure that I'm doing the things that is partially
right. Nick, if Kelly gets in your ear and tell you need to make the segment shorter, what does he tell you?
Rap, go quick.
Yeah, he's telling you you're talking too much.
Exactly.
And you need to get your information out there a little bit quicker.
Exactly.
So that was enlightening, because he didn't have to tell us that. That's last week's game.
Yeah.
He goes back to what the coaches tell us, move forward, i.e. Belichick. Hey, I'm on to Cleveland. I'm on to Cincinnati.
Relax.
He didn't do that. He said, so if I get to play quicker, I can play quicker. Only reason why I can't play quicker is because I'm not getting to play. So that was good insight.
But
right
do you like the fact that they're running the ball? When I look at this matchup, I understand what Pettine's going to do. Pettine's going to run blitz them early to try and get them behind the sticks. And they're going to use all their defensive equity to try and double these receivers to make Kirk Cousins beat you. Like, we really crown Kirk Cousins. A lot of times people see the salary, $30 million. He's an Alex Smith-ish type of quarterback. He's not, to me, a franchise quarterback. He was just the next man up. I'm thinking this is the game that exposes that he can't go head-to-head with Aaron Rodgers and beat him in a
Well,
okay corral.
listen, I mean, here's the thing. This team went 13-3 last year. They're
Yeah.
5-4-1 now. They thought they got better. Now, getting better doesn't necessarily mean you duplicate or better last year's record. But there are two, and I know we're going to talk about the other one shortly, but there are two monster games, playoff implications in the NFC this weekend. The 4 teams that are vying for the 2 wild card spots play each other. Yeah. Vikings play the Packers, and Seattle plays Carolina. Like, for all the heartache the Packers have had this year, if they win this game, they then have the same record as Minnesota with the tiebreaker and are in position to steal one of those playoff
I think they can
spots.
still win the division. I heard you guys talk about Chicago early, but Chicago has a crazy schedule, and the teams that they're fighting
And
for
so
the
do the
division,
Vikings.
they have to play, right? So I like the Packers' schedule a little better. I think the Falcons could be out of it and starting to rest guys, put guys on IR, which is what happens late in the season when you have a disappointing season. You know, the big matchup is against, Chicago. They're going to destroy the Jets. They're going to destroy the Lions. They're going to beat Arizona. They're going to beat the Falcons. Exactly. So I think they have the clearest path. I think what gets caught up is that tie game. But, as long as you don't get to 6 losses, now pretty much that's 10-6. I think that'll win the division. Mitch Trubisky, I mean, listen, that game yesterday was tight, too. Write it down, man. I guarantee you, I tell you that the Packers are going to win the division.
Oh, wow.
That's a tall. I
Write
don't know
it
if
down.
these two, or I would write off the Bears as quickly as
Write it down.
These two
We can
teams
put something on that, too.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about that afterwards.
Buy your new
These
pockets
two
for it.
teams, the Packers and the Vikings, have combined to win the last 7 division titles, right? I don't know. I feel like the Bears factor into it a little bit more than just who's going to win between these two. I feel like there's more that these two teams need to factor in than just who's going to win between the two.
Listen, with respect, I totally disagree with Bart. I think these two teams, they're
You don't
ceiling.
have to say it with no respect. Just say it.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Say it with your chest. That's how you got to say it.
Yeah,
trying to
that's
be-
not going to happen.
You're a
That's-
guest
he's
here.
got a
I'm
muscle
trying to be
soreness.
nice.
I understand.
The
I'm a cousin that comes over a lot, so you can.
Okay, I say this with no due respect.
typically
That's a
steal
terrible
something or
take.
get thrown
It's
out.
a bad
So-
opinion. The Bears
It's
are
a
gonna.
bad
It's a the Bears are 8-3,
opinion stinks.
and you got them going 1-4 the rest of the way, or 2-3 at best the rest of the way. I think the division is a wrap. Now, I do think one of these two teams is going to get the 6th seed in the NFC, and if the Vikings win this game, they're in great position. If the Packers lose it, I think they're all but eliminated. And teams that are 0-6 on the road don't go on 5-game winning streaks in the year. Like teams that if the Packers lose this game, it's because they're not very good. It's not because of bad luck. It's not because of any other reason. If they win this game, they can steal the wild card, not the division.
They win it by half a game. It's
Okay,
gonna be funny.
we can bet on it. That's fine.
All right,
No problem.
Cease's got it all written down. You just keep writing
We'll
down,
do
and we'll
watches.
talk about stakes at the commercial
Oh,
break.
that's a
Bart,
big
stick
bezel
around.
right
Coming up,
there. Balling on a budget.
just how dangerous are the Cowboys with Zeke and Amari clicking? Next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First with Bart Scott, we are going viral. Chase Daniel started for the first time since 2014 yesterday for the Chicago Bears, and even though the quarterback calmed his nerves to throw for 230 yards and 2 scores in the win, he was a little anxious to get on the field, leaving the tunnel, a tad prematurely. What? Oh, not now? My bad. Oops. I thought we were all going out, guys.
So what happens when you only have 70 career passes going into a game, despite making $30 million? You don't know.
I mean, you can
how
have
this
70
works.
passes and still know when you're not used to being the starter. The starters is coming out. Now, I'm going to tell you what he was prepared for, the press conference, because dude was clean.
Oh, yeah.
Beard trimmed. You see that,
Can we
Nick?
zoom in on
That's
that?
a full-grown beard there. There's no smoke. That's just all grown man.
I don't even have a beard anymore.
Well-
Don't be mad at me because you can't grow facial
It's not
hair.
because you shaved. It's because they took away the smoke.
You
He hit it with the
damn lie.
fedora.
Man, you're doing a lot of cussing there on this Friday.
You're making me mad a lot on
all
this
right, no
Friday.
problem.
What is the
Spicy?
smoke?
Jenna, we'll discuss later.
The 5 o'clock shadow stuff?
Yeah,
Yes.
to make it look more full.
Oh, yeah.
The thing they put in the back of Cece's head, cover up his damn bald spot.
Absolutely.
That's too
You
correct.
gotta get that Tigger, man. Get that Tigger.
More
Go ahead
from
and get that hair
Thanksgiving
transplant.
Cowboys playing host to Washington. Terrible hosts. Made them work all night. And no leftovers. Dak Prescott threw for 289 yards, scored 3 total touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott went off, 121 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And Amari Cooper finally having that breakout day with 180 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Cowboys go on to win 31-23, beating Washington. They're now tied atop the division, both teams at 6-5. Here's Dak on the team's performance.
100%. Just the way we're going and the way we're progressing, as you said, these last 3 games is defense making turnovers. We're actually going and cashing them in for touchdowns. We're taking care of the ball. Defense is getting us many, many possessions, even when we're punting it. So we're just all playing together. Offensive line's doing a great job holding up when we need to, making plays down the field. But there's still plays out there to be that have been left out there on both sides of the ball.
They say, if you really want to be a good team, you have to start rolling in November. And, we've just been focused, man. Standing tall with our backs against the wall, relentless. And, hopefully we can keep this up.
All right, Bart, you watch this game. What do you think is going to be the key, or what has been the key to this Cowboys team turning things around? Because it seems like they just sort of hit a corner and now they're off and running.
Well, it's Coach Colombo, right? Decide and understand. And
offensive line coach.
Yeah, offensive line coach. They made the change because they were trying to do more of a Denver scheme and get these guys going laterally. This is a big physical offensive line. You put a lot of draft equity into them. They're coming downhill. They're coming off double teams and getting up to the next level. They're putting Zeke in an eye back behind the quarterback, Dak underneath center. You're getting power runs, and he's making guys pay, and they're making business decisions. He's a big, physical, fast running back with loose hips, able to cut back, wind back, and get back to the second level. He's running away from guys, and that's been the biggest difference, allowing Dak to have play action down the field. Amari Cooper stepping up, but a little thing that concerns me is the fact that, 9 receptions for Cooper, but I don't see Hearns, who was one of their big offseason acquisitions, getting involved in the game, and Beasley starting to disappear. You need somebody that's going to be able to work the seams. They don't have an elite tight end. They need somebody that can work the seams of the defenses.
Yeah, I can understand why you'd have concern. I think that let's go to the good part first. And Amari Cooper being the #1 receiver, proving that I am worth that trade. So now they have so much positive tape that they can build on. And I just believe the Amari Cooper effect. Ultimately, he's going to get more coverage. Zeke's going to be running against less people in the box. Now, in the first 3 games before this, man, Zeke, it was they only had a little bit of coverage to Amari, so Zeke was benefiting. But the reason why the running game was really clicking was because of Mark Colombo, the new offensive line coach, the new combo blocking, and allowing him to get to the secondary. Now, Amari, because of these big plays, because what I believe it's going to do, NFL defenses are going to respect that, because you have to respect Amari Cooper's speed. People forget what an elite speed and runner with the football he is. And I believe when you start seeing stuff like that on tape, because I played with quarterbacks, a lot less ability than Dak Prescott. And they always used to tell me, Cris, there's always something about you when you make a play. It just gives me so much more confidence that I feel like I don't have to be perfect every week. I don't have to throw the ball in a certain spot. I'm not afraid to throw it in tight coverage. And you can start to see with Dak in a couple of the throws that he made, Amari's first touchdown, it wasn't perfect. Dak put it in a spot where he can make a play. On the second touchdown, he wasn't on his spot right there. You see him drifting to his left a little bit. He's waiting for Amari to get open. He puts a ball that speaks to him. Amari, there's no coverage to the inside. Take that and run off with it. They have double zone here with man underneath. He throws it right over the man coverage. Amari makes just an individual play that he's more than capable of doing. So for me now, it's a matter of building on the confidence that Amari, because I saw the kid who left Alabama in 2 of his first 3 years in the NFL was all pro. I mean, made the Pro Bowl. So that's the kid that I saw. And sometimes when you have quiet wide receivers, you have to be able to give them a sense of confidence, because I'm not saying Amari doesn't have confidence, but he's not a guy that's going to be bragging about it. Nick Saban immediately identified the personality of Amari Cooper. Yeah, it's a lot like Larry Fitzgerald. It's a lot like Calvin Johnson. But those guys have had coaches that help embolden them. Amari, for him to do that skit.
Well, that's what I was about to see. But it was something led up to it.
I mean, for people who would know him and be like, no, he would never do anything like that. To me, it shows he's very, very comfortable being there in Dallas, and they've really empowered him.
And you saw it before even the touchdown, when he's signaling for a first down. Like, that is not typical of Amari Cooper. You've known the guy since before he went to Alabama.
Yeah, I've seen Amari Cooper play every football game since his senior year, and that's 3 years at Alabama before he was drafted by the Raiders. I can swear by this kid. Like, he's one of the kids that I watch every single week.
And we got a diehard Raider fan on the staff who walked in this morning and said, even when Amari Cooper was going great, every time he scored a touchdown, hand the ball to the ref. Not only is he doing a celebration, but that one was planned out. The guys knew to line up on the free throw line. He did the Markelle Fultz tap it to each other free throw. Like, that was a well thought out, kind of a shade toward, not even kind of definite shade towards Markelle Fultz. Like, he is feeling at ease enough to do things like that. And the other thing we're seeing from a football perspective is the detriment to the defense. If you're going to use one of your safeties in run coverage, you only got to make one guy miss. Like, that's what we saw in those long touchdowns was he didn't have to run past 2 safeties, only had to run past 1.
And Bart, you've been on a team where you've seen it's a very good defensive team, but you've seen guys either come to the team, either drafted, you acquire them, and once they get that acceptance in the locker room, what it allows them to do on the field, maybe explain that to us.
Well, I tell you what, when I look at Cooper, he looks like a guy that got his freedom papers, right? Because what happens is when you're in a place and in the football operations, everything is going downhill. It's a black hole, and now you get your freedom papers, and now you're going from a team that you had no expectations for the season, and you get your walking papers, you go to a better place. Much like we see with Eli Apple, it's like being freed, right? You're freed. So now he feels like, okay, I have an opportunity to play meaningful football. My future's bright, and this team believes in me. Where the other team had lost faith in him, now they believe in him. So now when somebody believes, you want to prove them right and prove the other team wrong.
Oh, he said that, too, because they asked him the question, hey, are you playing like this because you want to prove Oakland to be wrong? He said, no, I don't want to prove them.
He said, I want to prove Dallas right, not prove Oakland wrong.
So quickly, Bart, is this team playing well enough to win a weak division, or are they playing well enough to actually do some damage moving forward?
Well, they're playing good enough to win this division just because I feel sorry for Washington, man. I mean, because they did everything right in the offseason, going out, get Alex Smith, improving that offensive line and bringing Adrian Peterson in, who looks like Benjamin Button, who looks refreshed and was going to be able to add something. Reed, for the first time, is healthy. And then the offensive line goes down, and now it's like, well, they're just trying to, stay afloat. And who knows if they can stay afloat. But I believe Dallas not only can win this division, but I feel like they can be a team that can upset a team because they can get ahead. And when you think about, playoff football, you got to pack your run game and your defense. And they have both. They have the ability to take the air out of the football, limit possessions. Time seems to fly by in the playoffs. They can run the ball and take out the time and just, take the time.
The way you guys won some with both your runs. The Jets and the Ravens, like quarterbacks that were similar to Dak Prescott skill set wise. Is Sanchez worse than Dak Prescott? And
they're about the same.
Okay, all right. Sanchez, I say this with no due respect. Sanchez is worse than Dak Prescott. But the Cowboys lost games like this early in the year. Close at the halftime, Zeke getting some carries early, and then they found a way to lose. Yesterday, they found a way to win, and Washington, because of those injuries, now the tiebreakers, everything, they're cooked.
All right, let's take a break. Thanks, Bart. Coming up, will Cam and the Panthers bounce back against the Seahawks after losing 2 straight? Next on First Things First. The 5-5 Seahawks and the 6-4 Panthers square off this weekend. Russell Wilson and his league-leading rush offense will look to get over the hump, while Cam Newton will look to keep his Carolina team undefeated at home. Both teams will be jockeying for an NFC wildcard spot down the stretch. Let the drama unfold. See, looking at this game, what do you think is the key to the matchup?
Oh, it's a physical contest. It's going to be which team can exert their will. Right now, Seattle, people, you haven't watched them really close. Man, Seattle is a running, physical football team. And going into last week, leading the National Football League in rushing. And if you hadn't watched Russell Wilson, he's doing less running than he's ever done in his career. So it's not like the numbers are inflated like sometimes we see with the quarterbacks who are more mobile because their numbers are baked into their. No, both of these teams love to be able to run the football, to be able to set them up for some play-action pass. Cam Newton playing some of the best football of his career. Can he generate enough big plays in their passing game? Devin Funchess hadn't been that productive, has been injured, might not play in this game. Torrey Smith, he's already out. So now that productivity is going to be laid on the rookie who's had a very promising rookie year. Can he hold that, being the #1 receiver? Is he ready to be able to do that? And that's what. Can he do that in this game? That's what I'm going to be looking at, Nick.
Listen, Carolina was 6-2, flying high.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, on Thursday night, they get blown out by Pittsburgh. Okay, it's Thursday. It happens. You then have the extra half week. You play a Detroit team that is not good, and you play poorly enough that it comes down to the very end. We know what happened. They went for 2, had a guy open, Cam misses the pass, and now all of a sudden they've lost 2 in a row. Now they're playing a team that if they lose to Seattle, they can wake up Monday morning out of the playoff picture for the time being.
Yes.
Seattle will have the tiebreaker. Minnesota and Green Bay play each other. Like, it could get real in a hurry for Carolina. One thing to note about Carolina, if you haven't watched them this year, you see, oh, they started 6-2, 6-4, been a good team. Great defense again in Carolina. No, it's not. Carolina this year, the defense has been underachieving.
Yes.
20th ranked points per game defense, outside of the top 10 in yards per game. They are the second to last red zone defense in football. They're not forcing the turnovers they have in years past. The reason they have these 6 wins is because Cam is playing some of the best football of his career. Norv Turner's been a great addition, as you predicted he would be, and their running game's been consistent. So, like, you can't rely on that Carolina front. They're not getting at the opposing quarterback. They're bottom 10 in the NFL in sacks. Like, it's been an offensive-minded team that has shortened games through the running game and through Cam playing his most efficient football of his career. But this is the biggest game to me of the weekend, because the winner of this game is in great position to be a dangerous wild card team. The loser of this game is facing must-win games the rest of the way.
Seattle, though, is getting after the quarterback. Their pass rush has really stepped up the last couple of weeks. Where does that factor in with a guy like Cam Newton?
Well, the thing about Cam is you have to be careful. You can't get too far up the field, because if he senses that, he's going to step up in the pocket. Now, Cam, in this type of game, in the NFC, this is more important game than people realize. You only got 6 teams in the NFC. We talk about how stacked the NFC is. At this point in the season, they only got 6 teams got a winning record.
Yep.
And you do not want to go on that other side and what they're going to face. So I think in this game, and the reason why I say that, I think Cam will do more running with the football. He'll try to keep plays alive longer than he maybe did earlier in the season, because he knows the importance of trying to get off the snide, trying to get off those 2 losses, and trying to get that good feeling back and try to win this game. So, yes, Seattle has gotten after the passer, but you know, in Cam Newton, you cannot rush him like any other passer. You have to be careful and not give him those running lanes where he can get out of the pocket.
And while Carolina won't be talking about it, they'll only say we're focused on this week. Here's the other thing Carolina knows.
Ooh.
They got 2 left against New Orleans.
Yes.
They haven't played them yet.
2 out of the last 3 weeks.
And they don't even have the benefit of, right now, you know what Carolina's rooting for? The Rams to lose some games. Because they do not want New Orleans in Week 17 to have the 1 seed on the line. They want New Orleans Week 17 to be resting folks. So, like, Carolina knows against New Orleans, best case scenario is a split. So there's your 5th loss. Like, this team, 6-2, we were talking about Cam being an MVP candidate, this being a team that was still alive for the division. Things can turn just as quickly as things have turned for Dallas in a positive direction over the last 3 weeks. Things could turn that way for the Panthers in negative direction if they don't take care of home field and win this weekend against Seattle.
All right, got a break. Coming up, has Amari Cooper revitalized the Cowboys season next? First things first. Back here, first things first, we are going viral. Drew Brees had the Saints offense rolling against the Falcons, throwing for 4 touchdowns in the 31-17 win. So how do you celebrate a 10-game win streak on Thanksgiving? By eating turkey.
It's not set. Oh, Lord. Look at the detail. Yes, Lord. Oh, and the Lord said God is good. I told you Dirty Bird was on the menu.
Get it, Drew.
I got a controversial take for you, see?
Go ahead.
Turkey, delicious.
Yes.
But turkey legs, wildly overrated.
Oh, no, man. You gotta get the turkey leg, because it has the most moisture. It's the dark meat.
Weird take.
Nah. Turkey legs, like, you feel like you're at one of those, like, medieval times, Renaissance fair, like, type thing, walk around big
but you have to carve it up, though.
Savage.
You have to carve it up, because it's a little bony, little cartilage and everything.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's the worst part of the turkey. Fried turkey wing. Give it to me. A little breast meat with some gravy, no problem. Some giblets in the middle, maybe a little gizzard, no problem. The leg? Come on, man.
I'm really shocked by you.
Why? Why are you shocked? Go ahead. Or should you pull it back?
I mean, that's the only thing white you like.
Oh, God.
I mean, dude like his coffee straight black. I don't want no cream, don't want no sugar. Just bring it to me hot and black. If anybody watched the show, you're a fan, social media, you know. Hey, man, I like my wife just like my coffee, bro. I want it hot, I want it black.
My wife, my coffee, and my quarterbacks.
And every once in a while, I want it to be a little spicy.
Okay. Okay.
Now you're on the turkey, on the white meat, the dry part.
Okay.
No, that's not you. That's not your brand, Nick.
Okay.
Get you a leg off in your life, dog.
Okay.
Quietly, I'm going to bring in a few stories to start your morning. Falcons fell to the Saints. We just saw the turkey. 31-17 yesterday. They had no answer for Drew Brees. Brees threw for 4 touchdowns. Matt Ryan on the other side, and that offense turned the ball over 4 times. Atlanta now eliminated in the NFC South. Nick, how disappointing has this season been for the Falcons?
Man, injuries and coulda, woulda, shoulda games. For week 1 of the season, 1st and goal from the 9, down 6, hold that L. Couple weeks later, overtime against this New Orleans team, hold that L. Next week, Cincinnati, a lead with 30 seconds left, hold that L. Like that, compounded by the injuries, that ruins the season.
And no one after their season has come up short of their expectations, going to say, hey, you know, the injuries. But it's a real excuse for certain teams. A lot of teams will face injuries. They will try to overcome them. But there will be a handful of good football teams, good organizations, well coached, that they will not be able to overcome them. And that's who the Atlanta Falcons are.
Yep.
All right, on to the Bears and Lions. Chicago's defense coming up big once again, intercepting Matt Stafford twice, including a pick 6. Bears win 23-16 to improve to 8-3. CC, is it time to start taking Chicago seriously as Super Bowl contenders, though?
You better take them serious, Jenna, even the Super Bowl. I like the Bears. I like how they've matched their defense. It's just not only their personnel, but it's what type of speed they have, how many pass rushers they have, and their ability to be able to make plays on the back end. That's what makes defenses very, very special. You can only hit the quarterback so many times. But if you can make some turnovers, give your offense extra possessions, yes, take the Bears serious.
See, you're starting to come to my side of things on Matt Stafford. Like Matt Stafford, gaudy numbers. But
I try to be nice, though.
I try to be nice. When he got that contract, you're like, stop counting another man's money. I said, man, it's a hard cap sport. You can't win games paying Matt Stafford $30 million. Team mediocre to bad again. Come on, Matt Stafford. I know that pick's not his fault, but the pick 6.
You know that was the wide receiver's fault, Nick.
The first
what percentage?
You're going to say today it's 60% it's wide receivers. Next week it might be 50%. It vacillates.
Stick it in the NFC North, guys. Packers, Vikings preparing for their matchup on Sunday. Both teams hovering around 500. Both hoping to keep their playoff hopes alive. All right, C. What is the key to this game, Packers-Vikings?
Which Packers team is going to get off the airplane and eventually get off the bus? We know their defense is the tale of 2 different teams. At home, defense has been spectacular. On the road, absent, missing in action. And that's not what the Packers need in this Sunday night matchup, because you're talking about one game that can turn their season. We got Barr coming back for the Vikings. They have Dalvin Cook also got out of last week's game healthy. I believe the Vikings in a must-win, desperate situation. Yes, because they got New England in a couple weeks and Seattle 2 out of the next 3 weeks. So.
And because these 2 teams tied each other, so this game determines the tiebreaker, right? So, like, if these 2 teams finish with the same record, whoever wins this game would be the one that gets the wild card spot if that's where they're at. I want to watch Aaron Jones in this football game. Also, 2 weeks ago, didn't really get the ball enough last week. Let's see if they can stay dedicated to the run to try to open some things up for Aaron Rodgers down the field.
All right, finally, big game Saturday on Fox as number 4 Michigan takes on number 10 Ohio State. The winner here goes on to the Big Ten Championship. The loser, well, they're all but eliminated from playoff contention. CC, what are you expecting in this one?
Well, I'm expecting the Buckeyes to try to run the football against a great Michigan defense. Buckeyes haven't been very, very effective. Michigan's defense has been one of the best. They get after the passer, create a lot of turnovers, got great linebackers playing for them, and a tremendous secondary. This is a tremendous challenge for the Buckeyes with only one loss on the schedule. This is the biggest challenge that they would face. And this is a team that the last 5 weeks, they have struggled. They've struggled offensively to try to be physical, and the defense is a defense that we wouldn't recognize. Typically, Ohio State, a top 5, top 10 defense, elite getting after the pass rusher, NFL defenders on the back end. Now, this year, we're not seeing that. They don't have the type of talent because a lot of that talent is playing on Sunday. In this year, you can see a lot of the younger players haven't stepped up to that great opportunity that they have.
Well, and remember last year when I said Carson Wentz the league MVP? You can't lose the MVP and win the Super Bowl. And then I ended up being wrong. We can't call Nicky Bosa the best player in college football. You lose him and then not expect your defense to take at least one step back. Now, Ohio State's defense has maybe taken 2 or 3 steps back. But I want the audience to understand what a rare occurrence we're going to see on Saturday is, because when the game kicks off, Ohio State, coached by Urban Meyer, is going to be a home underdog. Urban Meyer has not been an underdog at home at Ohio State nor at Florida. You got to go back to Utah and Bowling Green. Now, he's undefeated in those situations as an underdog at home, but he hasn't done it at either of his last 2 stops. I just don't know, if your Buckeyes can stop Michigan on the ground. Michigan couldn't run the ball in week 1 against Notre Dame. Their 1 loss of the year. Since then, they're averaging 235 a game on the ground. We know how good the Michigan defense is. You mentioned it, but their rushing attack has been the best part of their offense.
Watch the red zone, because Michigan's going to move up and down the field. Their quarterback, who's been inconsistent, how many turnovers does he avoid? Because they're going to get after him. They're going to blitz him. They're going to put the game in his hand to be able to win it. In the red zone, can Michigan come up with enough offense? Because their red zone offense, Michigan, has not been very, very good to be able to get touchdowns compared to field goals. So I look at a back and forth, a low-scoring game. This would be this would be one of the biggest upsets Urban Meyer's had since he's been at Ohio State, if he's able to pull off the upset to get to beating Michigan 7 times in a row, because they've beaten them 6 times going into this game.
And it would wreck Michigan's season. This has been the season that Harbaugh reminded everyone he's one of the very best coaches in college football. It will, if you lose your first game Notre Dame and then you lose your last game to where knocked out of the Big Ten championship game, knocked out of playoff contention, and you've never beaten Michigan or Ohio State, it'd be a devastating loss.
Seniors on that team, they've designed this year, they designated it as revenge year. So they're wearing these T-shirts and they're doing it paid out, got revenge. Not in the Notre Dame being Michigan State and a couple other teams that they've struggled with.
One thing that could help Urban Meyer, though, would be to get the foliage out of his face. I feel like if he could see the field, it'll be a better way for him to coach the game.
It's a graphics joke.
Back to the NFL
better
now.
Than a Seinfeld
they want
joke.
to be into that. Is it better? Washington taking on Dallas for a Thanksgiving throwdown. Cris Carter and said Amari Cooper would be the X factor. Cris was right. But I played Amari Cooper on my fantasy team last night, so I was right, too. I was actually righter than Cris was. Yeah. Cooper finally had his Cowboy breakout game, finishing with 8 catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. On a much-related note, the Cowboys won 31-23. They join Washington now atop the division. Here is Amari Cooper on his new team's recent success.
And I've just been putting in extra time with my coaches, with Dak. We sit right by each other in the meeting rooms. Just trying to catch up and be on the same page. And, for some reason, since I got here, the chemistry between me and Dak has been phenomenal.
There's no question he's added a spark, and that's almost trite when you see that kind of spark. But when he's leaving, there's no question about it. So that's big for us. And I'm so pleased with the way he's focused in, the way he's really getting in here and absorbing what we need him to do offensively, because he's on any down, he's capable of making the big play.
All right, CC, I know it's a small sample size, but from what you saw last night, and if that carries into the next couple of weeks, did Amari Cooper prove he was worth that first-round pick?
Definitely. That's what he's got to prove. He took a huge step last night from a confidence standpoint, because a lot of sports it has to do with rhythm. Can you catch a rhythm? Can you keep someone else out of rhythm? And ultimately, confidence. Because pro sports, historically, man, they crush your confidence. When you look for people why are they struggling? Man, you lose your confidence. It's not as if you lose ability. Now, you might get injured. You might have some setbacks, things like that. But for the most part, you lose your confidence, and it prevents you from doing the things that typically you've been very, very successful at doing. So that's what I saw yesterday in Amari Cooper. absent of what the real numbers were as far as number of catches, number of targets, number of yards, 120 yards after the catch, those types of things, I saw a guy that had his confidence back. When he was a young player in the NFL, tremendous confidence. When he stepped onto the University of Alabama campus, was a starter immediately. Tremendous amount of confidence, and Nick Saban was able to get the best out of him. That's the first time I've seen that in a couple years. So that's what I was very, very happy to be able to see. Get his confidence back. He's been spending the time. He paid dividends in this game, and I believe the rest of the season you will see him make big plays, because he had over a 200-yard game with the Raiders. He got 180 yards in this game. You don't have those types of games in the NFL and not be a big-time talent. So now it's up to the Cowboys to expand on it. Scott Lanahan, how do we grow this offense? Because you're still going to get 7, 8-man boxes, but that's what you see. If you put all those guys in the line of scrimmage, if one guy misses a tackle in the secondary, the guy can finish with a big play, and Amari showed that he has more than enough of that ability.
And I want you to show the audience in just a moment what exactly happened on those 2 touchdowns. But before we do that, I want, if people were in their post-turkey coma yesterday, to understand this context of these touchdowns. Washington had just taken the lead. Washington had just had a 3-play touchdown drive after the Cowboys go 3 and out to go up 13-10. The Cowboys are facing a 3rd and 2 outside of Brett Maher's field goal range. That's when Amari Cooper bust off the 40-yard touchdown. Cowboys then force a punt, but it's a great punt. They're backed up inside their own 10. And 2nd and 9 from the 10. Amari busts off the 90-yard touchdown run. And all of a sudden, a 13-10 Washington lead becomes a 24-13 Dallas lead. And the entire context of the NFC East is flipped on its head. Here's the first one. What's happening here, C?
He runs a smash route. They have a slant, flat route, supposed to be a 7, 8-yard catch, maybe get 10 yards. During man-to-man, guy slips. He runs away with it and finishes the play. He does have elite closing speed. He's always had very, very good hands. Struggled with some of that in Oakland. But that's what you get when you have someone like Zeke in the backfield. There's not a lot of guys. There's too much space on the field when you have a guy like that. So the overall threat of that, and to have those people close to the line of scrimmage, that's the end result when you have an explosive player.
So that's a 3rd and 2 play where they're running that play to pick up the first down.
Yes.
They're not running that play to try to have some big play. So what about the other one? It's 2nd and 9 on their own 10-yard line. They now have a lead. Tell me what's happening in this play here.
Yeah, they're playing a very conservative defense, 2-man, where they're going to man underneath. The safeties are going to be wide. He runs a seam route. Dak makes a risky but a throw that him and the wide receiver, they should be able to make. Throws it right over the DB's head. 2 safeties should converge on it for the stop right there for a 25-yard gain. But because he's an elusive runner and he's got bigger size than people, he's hard to get on the ground. You can see the running ability that makes him a difference maker. Now, Michael Thomas, another very, very good receiver. He catches that. He might get 5 or 6 yards after that, but he doesn't have that finishing ability to be able to finish it at the end. But it's the tale of 2 seasons for Amari since he's been at the Dallas Cowboys, which is enough sample size. This was game number 4, and in 6 games with the Oakland Raiders, you can see the receptions about the same. Yardage, you can see he's taking that lead, but those 3 touchdowns in 4 games, now it's up to Scott Lanahan. It's up to the rest of that offense to be able to build upon this, to be able to add more explosive plays, get him in routes where he can catch the ball on the run, because that's one of the things that he really does well. He reminds me of a guy who played in the league, who I tried to compare Amari to when he coming into the league, Torrey Holt. Very good route runner, very, very mature guy as a football player, and understated. Very, very good in the locker room, and his teammates love him. I see the comparisons in Amari that I saw in Torrey Holt.
And one stat that wasn't on that graphic, but is a very important one, 0 drops with the Dallas Cowboys. After over the last year and a half in Oakland, that had really all of a sudden become a bugaboo for him. 0 drops with the Cowboys. The two biggest plays that have been made in the NFC East this season were those 2 Amari Cooper touchdowns. They flipped the division, and so we'd been waiting for it. We knew the talent was there. Cris, known him since high school, can't figure out quite what was wrong the last 20-some-odd games. Hopefully this is a step continued to the old Amari Cooper coming back.
All right, we got to take a break. I'm exhausted. I need a drink of water or something. Just
Jenna wanted to break down the tape.
Coming up, it was a seam route, times 7.
Smash
Carried
route.
4, smash route with seams. Have the Saints officially put the rest of the NFL on notice? Back here with Bart Scott. We are going viral. Ezekiel Elliott celebrated his big Thanksgiving performance the only way he knows how. First donating $21 to the Salvation Army,
So
and
cheap.
then upping the ante by donating $1, Dak Prescott.
Jerry Jones says he donated $21 and then about $115 million in that little bucket right there.
So you're saying they're going to pay Dak?
I'm saying that's about what Jerry's about to break Dak off with this offseason.
I tell you what, he better give Dak better give him a discount so he can get Lawrence. That's who they really need. That's the key to this offseason for them.
I actually think he donated $21,000 afterwards. Didn't he get fined for doing that? Did I read that? And then he went out and
last
donated $21,000. Last year he did, but I think this year as well.
I think, well, he's probably going to get fined for at least one of these. I am curious because the refs flagged Dak. Dak's like, I didn't do nothing. I got picked up by this big-headed monster. Like,
We all know
what'd you
who
want
paying
me to
that.
do?
Jerry's paying that. He's so happy right now.
A
He'll pay
salary cap
anything.
violation, man. What are you alleging? What are
Okay.
you alleging?
That envelope, that envelope in over there. I ain't alleging nothing.
What up, C? Nothing. You just want to talk about something else? No
Sticking
problem.
with Thanksgiving
We got
action. All right, if the Saints have anything to be thankful for this year, it is unquestionably Drew Christopher Brees. He said earlier in the week he feels like he's in his zone, and that continued last night against the Falcons. Brees finished with 171 passing yards, found 4 different receivers for touchdowns, and they won 31-17 for their 10th straight win. Here is Drew Brees after the win.
Each week, I think especially over the last 3 weeks, you've seen just a level of confidence and growth and maturity. I think out of some young players, really on both sides of the ball, stepping into roles, getting significant playing time, really having to contribute in a big way, and they've just continued to get better and better. And I think there's confidence that's building with that too. And so you just feel like we're scratching the surface.
All right, Bart, you look at this team. Everything seems to be clicking right now. Is this the best team in the NFL or on their way towards being?
I still think the Rams on a neutral field may be a better team just because they showed me something that Monday night game, the grit they had to be able to go score for score against the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think is the best team, but may not, win the Super Bowl. Really, the Saints are coming down to Judgment Day, right? They have the Carolina Panthers twice. They have the Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas. We don't know what that game's going to be, but they have to keep pace to make sure that it goes through the dome and they don't have to travel out west, because I think on a neutral site, they may lose a disappointing game against the Rams.
What you're saying about what they have the rest of the way is very important. They got one easy game left, and that's a game on the road against the only team that's beaten them this year,
Right.
Tampa Bay. Like they're at Dallas, at Tampa, at Carolina, so 3 straight games on the road. Then home for the Steelers in what will be a monster game.
Yeah.
Home for the Panthers to end the season. But I think everyone agrees Rams, Saints, Chiefs are the 3 best teams in football. I now do feel the Saints are the best team. Why? Because we're seeing the defense, now that Marcus Davenport's back from injury, that they can get a legitimate pass rush with he and Cam Jordan. We're also seeing that in a game where Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas combined for 5 catches, 47 yards, 0 touchdowns. Drew Brees still throws 4 touchdowns to 4 guys. I'd only heard of one of them. Keith Kirkwood, undrafted out of Temple. Austin Carr, not the Cavs' great Austin Carr, some other dude undrafted out of Northwestern. Tommy Lee Lewis, undrafted out of Northern Illinois. And the best of them all, Dan Arnold from Wisconsin Platteville, which I had never heard of the player or the school. All of those guys caught touchdown passes. Sean Payton and Drew Brees right now see the almost hive mind they have going. From scheme and accuracy pairing up. Doesn't matter who they put out there. Like, this is one of the rare times for the Saints. Maybe it is about the X's and the O's more than, as you would say, the Willies and the Joes. At least last night, whoever the Willies and the Joes were, they were running wide open.
Yeah, I think it was very important to be able to see a game like this against someone who knows you, very, very familiar with you, which the Falcons, they always play these games, are knockdown, drag out, very, very tough. But we need to be able to see, what if Ingram, Kamara, what if Michael Thomas, what if they don't get off? What if you are able to negate them from having big games? People say, well, there's not a lot of roads that lead to victory if that happens. Last night is a nice game plan to see, because you could see, because I watch teams when they win and when they lose, but I watch the star players. How do they act when they're not stars? And you could see every interview that the Saints do, being Drew Brees, that being Ingram, that being Kamara, that being Mike Tyson. Watch the demeanor that they have. Watch the good time that they have. They didn't have a great game. They didn't deserve no turkey leg last night. But it just tells me something about how much they enjoy being together. And sometimes the team players say it, you know something, it don't matter. Well, let me tell you something. Unless you win it in a big way, those stats, they do matter. So it was nice to see, Bart, this team play well without their stars putting up those huge numbers.
Exactly. And what happens is the best tape to have is teachable tape when you have a victory. And you look at what Atlanta was able to do. They were able to move the ball up and down the field. You talk about 4 turnovers. So now you get to take that defense that's playing well, maybe start reading some of the press clip and start feeling good about themselves. You give them teachable moments. You messed up here, you messed up there.
Yes.
So now you keep them on edge, because what you don't want them to do is get lax, because you can win 10 in a row and get comfortable. And the same thing that make you laugh, make you cry. You know, things that happen that I said all the time. You know, when you win, you're so happy because you won. Things that can make you lose get swept under the rug.
Jeff Van Gundy would always say, do not ignore in victory what you wouldn't ignore in defeat. Right. And that's what you're saying, is don't
Exactly.
let, just because the result was good, don't act like you played a perfect football game. But what we are seeing, Jenna, is this Saints offense is so good, it's making the other team's offense worse. We are seeing guys, Julio, who is obviously a great player, against a different team, maybe he gets down in the red zone as opposed to trying to fight for an extra 4 or 5 yards, end up fumbling the ball when he gets helicoptered. They're not going for 6 fourth downs, half of which are early, because you feel like we have to match scores. Like they put so much pressure on you even when they're on the sideline. That's what the Saints offense does. That gives them an enormous edge.
And I said this a few weeks ago. They are not only prepared for right now, they are prepared to make this year the run. They have a backup quarterback if something happens to Drew Brees. They went out and they got Teddy Bridgewater. They wanted to bring Des Bryant in. They wanted to bring Brandon Marshall. They want everything stacked up and lined up perfectly. Yeah. And last night you saw you didn't even need those two, because you got these 4 guys no one's heard of that are working perfectly in this scheme that Sean Payton put out.
They pushed all their chips to the middle. They understand that they don't know how much longer they're going to have Drew Brees. They have to take advantage of his prime. And, you look at, they gave up their first-round draft pick for Davenport. They went out and made the moves for Eli Apple. So they're all in right now to try and win. And, you look at Eli Apple and building confidence, right? We've tore him down so many times. They're building him back up. He's around a lot of his alumni, a lot of his Ohio State, teammates. So they're telling him that you can. And then how do you inject confidence into a player? You put him on the best player and say, we believe in you. Understanding that, you can always change the game plan. You have the offense is really not a threat, but he don't know that, right? It's kind of like telling your son that shoot the ball and you move the basket. He don't know you moved it. He's like, oh, you're great. But he believes it. It's not about, belief is a powerful thing.
And it works.
Exactly.
And it really works. It's nice to see with the Saints. Let's not forget, though, where this team came from. The miracle in Minneapolis prevents them from being the NFC Championship. They are a better matchup against the Eagles because of their good offensive line than the Vikings would have been. So it's not as if this team came from nowhere and said, we're going to try to cash it in this year. They're a team that realized we're building, got some good young capital. Let's take advantage of one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, signed him to a 2-year deal, add a couple other pieces, and they are on a roll. I believe they're the best team in football.
And you do as well?
Yes, absolutely.
I think Kansas City, what Kansas City did was impressive, with 5 turnovers still in the game, putting up those type of points. Once they get Eric Berry back, if they get Eric Berry back, that defense is starting to play elite. Lost in that was what Houston did. Everybody's paying attention to Darnold.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.